The Sud de France is an organization that promotes the wine, the food, and the culture of southern France, specifically the Languedoc-ROussillon. I am in love with the wines from Languedoc-ROussillon, so they sent me out there for 5 days with a video camera. I visited 10 winemakers and got to see just how magical this place is. The following videos are my experience of the wines that we should be seeing more and more on the American market. Please enjoy.
Mr. Rosset's mother owned the winery until the beginning of the 90s. It was a different age, basically.
I am speaking to one of the most celebrated winemakers in Languedoc-ROussillon, especially in the area of La Clape is where we are, Cyril Chamontin.
We are planted with Alicante Boucher.
The Chateau De La Negly property is owned by the Rosset family.
We make some popular wines.
The current owner of the property is Paul Rosset. He inherited it from his parents. What Cyril is telling me is that his parents had this property to produce grapes, and at the time of their generation, there wasn't a lot of focus on quality. It was all about quantity, and they would actually get a lot of grapes from Africa while the French occupied that area.
Around 15 tons per hectare. Right. If you compare to today, we are making 3 tons per hectare.
Wow. This is wonderful. When Paul Rosset took over the property, he decided that this area was wonderful for specifically well taken care of, well done wine. So he decided to lower the yields and start making some of the most celebrated wine in Languedoc-ROussillon. This is the La Clape region, and Chateau De La Negly pretty much defines this region. And Cyril is the winemaker.
And us, it was
Before we saw the first vineyard, Cyril wanted to give me an idea of how everything changed when Jean-Paul took over. They started planting new vines, more sort of Rhone varietals, Roussanne, Marsanne, and they took up all the vines called Alicante Boucher, which are vines that were existing in the area during that phylloxera epidemic.
when Mr. Rosset came at the end of the 80s.
But, and this is a testament to a really good winemaker, is they decided, as they were looking at the property, to keep some of these very old vines, because older the vine, the more focused the fruit.
The first step to improve the winery was to establish a couple of blocks of Shiraz, mainly Shiraz at the beginning, a bit of Mourvèdre, and Roussanne and Marsanne for the whites. We were a bit lucky for the whites because we a local variety, Bourboulenc.
Yes. Bourboulenc. This is the wine I was telling you about, the old vines they kind of kept around for a while. Bourboulenc, as we know in the American market, is often a blending varietal, and it's often seen in southwest France. This is very south of southwest France, right on the Mediterranean. But it's a great blending varietal, and the chateau here, Chateau De La Negly, has this wonderful ability to make Bourboulenc or Bourboulenc wines where the majority of the wine is that varietal, and then they blend it with other grapes. We'll see later in the video.
A couple of Roussanne and Marsanne. And for the reds, it was Shiraz, and a bit of Mourvèdre.
Okay.
And we kept some very old blocks of bush wine, the most quality blocks, basically.
And they also kept some of the old vines from the reds. This, what we're about to see, is a very old Mourvèdre.
This block, we keep this type of blocks,
right,
as such as this one, Mourvèdre, and on the left side, it's a very old block of Bourboulenc.
Oh, wow. And we got out of the car to get a sense of the terroir. You can't really hear what we're talking about because the wind, these currents, as I've been talking about during this series, is pretty intense. But he's showing me how close we are to the Mediterranean. If you look at this here, how flat this is. Now, when we get to other vineyards, you're going to see completely different style and completely different terrain. But there's the Mediterranean right there. This is how close it was. I want to be here in the summer so bad. I want to be in the vineyards.
In one area, yeah, that's the same place. Shiraz? Shiraz. You can take a look, yeah.
So then he took me right up a hill to see a younger vineyard of Syrah. And the soil actually changed a little bit. Down towards the Mediterranean, just down the hill, it was very sandy. And if you look at this is beautiful and rocky and clay.
I could show you a different block over there, and it's really different as well. Yeah,
wow, this is amazing. In my brain at this moment, I was so ready to taste the wines already, and we still had some more vineyards to see, but I was very curious because you have all these different terroirs being blended into these wines. Oh.
You have to imagine that this region, it's really dry. The climate is really dry, and you are actually in an AOP area, and irrigation is completely forbidden.
This is what I love about this area. Well, one of the many things I love about this area is irrigation is forbidden. It forces the winemakers to do other things to keep these vines alive. And it's pretty much a challenge, I would imagine, here because it's so flat.
Basically, when we drink, we just keep...
Just a little side note here. This is a pretty cool historical fact. He's showing me the different ways they prune this vine, and the way they prune it is because of the way the tractors come through and aerate the soil. Back in the day, they were pruned differently because farming machinery was different, and they just have to make sure when they prune the vines that the tractors don't interfere with the vines and hurt the vines.
Yeah. And basically two branch by branch. Okay. To make some quality grapes, to produce some quality grapes, we need an hydric stress during summertime, right? But a small one. Right. If it's too hot, the different, you know, the leaves.
I'm trying to really trying to control my excitement here. What this winemaker is telling me is what I've been reading for a long time, and when I hear this, I lose it. When we talk about vines, we as humans are stressing the vines. Vines don't want to grow grapes. They grow grapes because they're in an environment they feel is stressful. But that's what we do as humans, is we stress the vines, but not too much. Just enough so they can produce the best quality fruit. And this guy, Cyril, is incredibly in tune with his land. Okay, real quick, I'm going to stop talking and listen to the actual wind currents here. I just couldn't help it. The current was so strong I had to do a Michael Jackson sort of king of the world thing there. But you see, the Mediterranean is very warm. It's very hot. And this wind, called the Mistral, which starts in Scandinavia and then works its way all the way down into the Mediterranean, circles around and rushes back up into the landmass. And when it gets into the landmass, it turns into many currents which have different names. But this is what keeps the grapes nice and cool in a very hot region and allows that acidity to kind of like be bracing and beautiful, which we've been trying all throughout the Languedoc-ROussillon. Acidity is everywhere. Love it. Another little historical fact here. Cyril's showing me how when Jean-Paul Rosset took over the land, the vineyards were planted a certain way, which was due to that farm machinery I was talking about. When they had to replant the vines, they did it in a different way, in rows, like we all know, because of the modern technology. Oh, history's so cool. Fate was behind us because as we went to the next vineyard, we actually saw there was one of the vineyard guys pruning. So we got a chance to really see how this pruning happens. When he was showing me earlier, when you cut and you cut and you cut, here it is in action. Oh, and by the way, you can still see the Mediterranean in the background, but look at this soil. It's clay and limestone. It's completely different. So we've seen 3 different terroirs, 3 different soil types in one place. And again, the wind was so strong you really can't hear what we're talking about. But here we go. This is what he was showing me earlier. This guy has this hydraulic powered pruner. It kind of scared me, and I can't imagine what that must be like. You kind of have to get used to it, but it's zip, zip. It's all mechanical, and it's really highly pressured. And he also told us some stories about people losing fingers, which freaked me out. Ladies and gentlemen, we are witnessing human interaction with a grapevine. This has been going on since I don't know when, but this is beautiful. These vines are being taken care of. The humans are in love with the vines, and the vines in turn give them wonderful fruit. The pruning also has to do with aerating the canopies and aerating the grapes because it's a hot area. If they're not careful and don't have enough wind going through the canopies of the leaves and the grapes, it can create ambient temperatures for bacteria and fungi. So that's another thing he's talking about right now before we go and see the last vineyard. And then we'll go into the winery and really get a sense of these wines and how they're made. Last vineyard before we hit the winery, you're going to see in a second that it is yet another soil composition. This is mostly gravel. This is a small little vineyard that they thought was going to die, and it started producing grapes, but a very, very small amount of grapes, so they went ahead and harvested it. And it turns out that the fruit is so concentrated and beautiful, they went with it, so they keep the vineyard around. And we'll be tasting this wine when we get back into the vineyard, but watch the soil. We've seen sand, we've seen clay, we've seen limestone. Here is gravel. I'm sure there's some clay and limestone in there as well, but this is completely different. And you'll see the rows are covered with these stones, which you didn't see in the other vineyards. I don't know what that little yellow ball is. I wonder if that's for a vineyard dog.